Hi, everybody. I'm Cindy Braden, the SVP of Sales for EnsoData, and I want to thank you for spending some time with us today to participate in our webinar, EnsoSleep AI Scoring Demo and Overview. I'm going to provide a tour of the software and give you a sense of everything that it does and hopefully some of the opportunity it could provide for your sleep lab. But before I take a look at the software itself, I do want to take a minute to talk about all of the, and I'll use finger quotes here, stuff that is on the plates of you and your team. In healthcare, we're continually being asked to do more. Sometimes it's do more with less. Sometimes it's do more with the same, but nevertheless, healthcare is changing drastically, probably more so in this last year as far as expectations put on you and your staff than ever before. Technology is really changing the world. Obviously, telemedicine came into play with COVID last year, but really patient expectations. Patients are also consumers, so they're bringing that consumer mind, their reliance on technology, their ability to honestly shop around, have things at their fingertips. You know, patients really expect to be able to easily find appointments, book appointments, be flexible with appointments, be seen quickly, be diagnosed quickly. And then let's face it, a lot of them are quite particular even on their treatment and getting optimal results. So there's all of these expectations that patients have in general in healthcare. I borrowed this image from an article from the National Academy of Medicine website. I just thought it was really speaking a lot to, or providing imagery to the kind of expectations that patients have in general and everything that you have on your plate, particularly in sleep. This goes even beyond patient expectations, right? I mean, most recently, there's been questions about the effectiveness of CPAP and treatments. There's been some issues with some CPAPs that you and your staff are dealing with. Reimbursements are constantly being adjusted. The different payers are recommending oftentimes HST over PSG and trying to navigate the different payments and recommendations from the insurance companies. Patient comorbidities are getting more severe, right? Our patients, unfortunately, a lot of them are getting more sick, particularly the ones that you guys are seeing in your labs. Obviously, as I mentioned, those patients' expectations are going up. They're really bringing their consumer-minded focus into healthcare and what they expect. I mean, I probably don't have to mention to you, you know, Apple is out there saying that they can track sleep and blood pressure and heart rate and all of these different things. So your patients are really aware of this, and that really transfers to a lot of pressure on the sleep labs. So thinking about all of this, you know, your staff is really being stretched to the limits. You're probably being stretched to the limits. When you think about the COVID requirements and the sanitizing going on in the labs, you know, your staff goes home and they have to deal with all that extra stuff. Hopefully, we're at least past, you know, your staff having their students at home trying to do school from home, right? It's been a crazy year. Healthcare is always changing, but there's really a heck of a lot more on the plates, providing stress in the office, in our labs, as well as for people at home. And then if you add all of that up and you think about the fact that the patient base that need help with sleep care is growing. We're trying to make a dent in this, and then there's more and more patients, some because awareness is growing, which is fantastic, but some, unfortunately, as I said earlier, because in general, the population's getting sicker, and there's a lot of people that need your care. So I drew this up quick before we dive into the demo, you know, of like an optimal sleep care continuum. This is another thing that I stole from the website from the health. Oh my gosh, I want to quote it correctly because otherwise, if I don't, the National Academy of Medicine from their website. I tweaked it a bit to the sleep care continuum, thinking about ultimately having tremendous awareness, right? Anybody who needs sleep care knows about it. All of the referring doctors know about it. You've got this great network. People are teeing up awesome patients for you, patients that can really take advantage of your care. You're able to get out in the community and educate the community and drive patients to you, right? There's going to be some patients that you're not going to be, or providers that you're not going to be able to make aware. So screening becomes a really important part of an ultimate sleep care continuum. If there's a patient that's not aware that they need sleep care, somewhere, somehow, you're able to flag those patients, or somebody's able to flag those patients for you. Very often now, we're seeing sleep navigators in health systems, which are fantastic. Stop Bang is getting asked. I know there's the ability perhaps to try to pull information from EMR data. The more and more we put good data into computers, hopefully the more and more we can get good data out and really help with the screening so that patients don't get missed that need our help. Once you get them screened, you identify those patients, we got to get them tested, right? So PSGs, HSTs, figuring out which patient. Ultimately, we're going to get the right patient tested with the right equipment. We're going to get that testing done quickly. You're going to have openings in your beds. You can have all of your beds full, and your HST devices are going to get turned over quickly so that you're able to not only manage the growth that we know there's all these patients out there that need to be tested, but you're also going to be able to not have things sitting on your shelf and having your staff be overwhelmed by everything that they're trying to keep up with. Ultimately, we're going to turn a diagnosis around really quickly, right? The patient comes in, they're going to hear from us quickly, they're going to get that diagnosis. Your RPSGT is going to have proper time to review the studies, get the proper diagnosis, get the correct findings to the provider so we can get an accurate diagnosis, and ultimately that we'd always have the correct diagnosis, which would lead us to proper treatment, happy patients, everybody having access to care, no matter their economic status. And then our final chapter of adherence, and that we've done a good job, we've educated the patients, they understand the importance, and they're healthier, they're living happier lives, they're doing better in general, and we can all go to bed and not feel like we're completely overwhelmed, which I don't know about you guys, but that's not typically how I end the day. Some days are better than others. But so this is, all of the things that are going on in healthcare, all of the changes, and then ultimately this, I think, is pretty close to what most of us either in a health system or in a sleep lab, a private sleep lab, are aiming for, right? While having happy, healthy staff as well. So thinking about all of this and everything that's on your plate, I am curious, I'm going to launch a poll. I'm assuming part of why you're here is because there's areas that you feel like you would like to have some more time to focus. I am sure most of the people are feeling like they're doing a really great job in most things. I know your patients are getting excellent care, but I'm just curious to see if there's an area here that you're like, oh, if I could have some more time, this is what I would do. This is what I would free up my staff to do. So, and then I'll let you all take a peek at what everybody voted. So there you go. It looks like diagnosis, treatment, and adherence are kind of the leaders of the pack. Obviously, awareness screening to testing. I mean, there's stuff, you could vote for more than one, I guess. Obviously, there's a lot of things. So I'm not surprised because I know, it's probably a little bit like whack-a-mole. With everything that's going on in the world, sometimes you feel like you get one area adjusted and then whoop, pops up another little whack-a-mole that you got to take care of. So there you go. All right, so I would like to give just a couple of examples. Speaking about that care continuum, I mean, I will tell you, I was working on this slide. I could have made this list go on and on. These are all actual examples from existing customers of things that they came to us and said, we're struggling with no-shows. I could use my RPSGTs to spend some time reaching out to the patients. A lot of times when we talk to patients, we find out no-shows are because they just weren't comfortable or they weren't familiar with what they needed to know. And having somebody that's actually on RPSGT Talk to Them really reduced the no-shows. Eliminating backlog, that's pretty self-explanatory. I do want to focus on, the ability to get quality data while you're running the test, and then freeing up time for your staff to be able to talk to the patients. And I'm not surprised, compliance and adherence was something that got the highest scores. It's, we put all of this work in, chasing these patients, educating these patients, testing these patients, getting the results to these patients, and ultimately we're all shooting for good outcomes, right? We want these patients to have high quality of life. And then let's not forget the quality of life of your staff. Without naming names, we had, right before I went on vacation, we actually had 2 labs that called us that, their staff, both of these labs, same week, completely not associated with each other, both lost crucial staff because staff was just exhausted and overworked. One staff member actually went to another location where they felt that they could have a better work-life balance. If you don't have happy staff, ultimately, I can say there's all sorts of things, that I can do to hopefully help provide relief for your office so that, the patients can go get good outcomes, but all of that is being delivered by the staff that's treating the patients. So we really want to make sure that the staff has as good of a life as possible at work so they can really pass all that on to the patients. All right, let's take a look at EnsoSleep. I recognize a lot of names on here, which is exciting because I know there's quite a few people that have been looking at EnsoSleep in the past, so you probably already know this, but we have a lot of new people on as well. So let me explain to you what EnsoSleep is quickly before we dive into our demo. EnsoSleep is AI-assisted sleep scoring that enables sleep techs to edit rather than score from scratch. Okay, so this is artificial intelligence software. This was not computer developers taking a stab at how to score a study. We plugged tens of thousands of studies that were scored by clinicians into our algorithm to teach the algorithm this is how really good RPSGTs and providers score studies. Learn from this. So it's AI assisted scoring that will score that study, pop it into your software so that then your technicians can review the study and make those edits, really look for those tricky things and have the time to focus on them versus scoring from scratch. EnsoSleep is compatible with most major viewing and scoring software. It's going to run in the background of your current process. And then ultimately, you'll notice I'm spending a lot of time talking about time and what you could do with more time. I know what I could do with more time in a day, but ultimately using EnsoSleep to free up time from your sleep techs so that they can either add more studies, they can focus on growth, or they can go chase all those other really important things that they're probably very, very good at in that ultimate sleep care continuum. All right, here we go. Let's take a look at the software. The first thing I'm going to show you, I've got a couple of different examples for you, is I'm going to show you how to edit a study that was scored by EnsoSleep, and I'm actually using the EnsoSleep viewing software. You guys don't have this because it's not available yet, but I don't have access to all of the software platforms that you are using out on the market. And I'm also not very familiar with how to do things in them, and I'm not an RPSGT, so I'm sure I would completely blunder my way through that. So just know you're going to see me open a study that's been scored by EnsoSleep, and it's going to be the same as it would be in your viewing software, and you're just going to edit it the way that you've always edited it in your viewing software. And I'll show you some examples of that after I do this. But the first thing I'm going to do is you'll see here, there's one study that's being scored currently, and then I've got a bunch of studies that have already been scored. So I'm just going to go ahead and open it up. Again, you would be doing this in whichever of the viewing software that you're currently using, and then voila, after it's been scored by EnsoSleep, you're going to have the results at your fingertips. so that you just have to get in here and click through. The first thing that I want to show you is Enso scored some events here, and this patient is awake. First thing I want to point out with EnsoSleep is you have the ability to customize the software as you're going through the implementation process. Our customer success team is fantastic, and they're going to set a ton of preferences based on your needs. I'm not going to go through them all, but I bet you guys can guess, because I brought it up here, what one of those preferences is that you can turn either on or off: scoring events during wake. I obviously have that turned on in my little imaginary environment here, so I could come in and delete them as needed. I think most people do turn off scoring events during wake. Just a couple other examples. The list is very long, but you have the ability to turn on or off scoring snore, scoring RERAs or respiratory events if they're in an epic before a sleep epic. Honestly, there's so many customizable options. I'm not going to go through them all. It's something that you would work with the customer success team. And if you have specific questions on it, you can discuss it with your account exec if you want to have a private demo of EnsoSleep. I just, again, don't pay too much attention to how to edit in the EnsoSleep viewing software, because you would be doing this in your software. But whatever it is that you're used to doing, you can adjust, you can move. I'm going to delete again, and then I'm just going to pop forward and just give you some examples as we scroll, you know, epic to epic. This is what it's going to look like in your viewing software. As you open it up, the software, it's going to do the scoring. You have the ability to then get in here, make any adjustments that you need to make. I'll tell you, EnsoSleep's going to do a really good job of taking that first pass and allowing you to edit, but you have the ability to make any edits that you need. The last thing that I'm going to show, again, like you would in your viewing software, you have the ability to adjust the stages, anything that EnsoSleep didn't get exactly the way you want it as it did its pass of the scoring. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to show is just another quick video of another example. Hopefully, as I was showing it in our viewer, you're like, oh, no, I get it. It's scored it. I just log into my existing software and edit it. But let me show you, just in case, of what it looks like in another program. So here's an example. We could go ahead and search all of the studies that were done overnight. We're going to pull up the study and we're going to move it to a folder from Sandman so that it scores in Enso. Very, very simple and easy to do so. Typically, a technician will come in the morning, scan for the media, move it to the Enso folder, go get their cup of coffee while Enso does the scoring, and by the time they get back, they're going to have the study scored. I opened up the Enso dashboard just so that you can see once we moved it, Enso will score it. Now that happened faster than it will in real life. It's like magic of TV, like a cooking show. But it takes a couple of minutes. Like I said, most technicians will go start their cup of coffee, and by the time they get back, it's done. You scan media again, it's going to say, ta-da, there's that study. It has been scored by EnsoSleep. Now you just open that study up. If anybody notices, I make one little mistake here in the video. I click on the wrong folder, but it'll open up that study. It'll be scored by EnsoSleep, and then you have the ability to simply edit and make any adjustments you need versus needing to score that study from scratch. All right, one more example here, and this example is going to come with a shout out. As I said, it's very, very easy to work with most of the major viewing software platforms, but I do want to give a shout out to Cadwell. This is a split screen image here, so this is that Enso data dashboard. Cadwell, even though it's you know, the process of moving a couple of studies around to get them scored and then taking a look in the Enso data dashboard to see when it's ready, and then just opening it up in your existing viewing software to make the edits. Cadwell took it a step further, and they did an integration directly with EnsoSleep with Enso data. So I have a split screen here because I want to show you. Here is the Cadwell viewer. You have the ability to see the 2 studies here that are being scored, and the complete study in the Enso data dashboard in Cadwell says Enso scored. So you don't need to go to the EnsoSleep viewing software to take a look and get the status of things. Cadwell has built this integration so that it's right in. Just an effort to make it even easier for their customers to take advantage of EnsoSleep's AI scoring. All right. Okay, so hopefully you guys have the idea of how easy it is to score, to review, and pop into the scored studies in your existing software, whatever you're using, and make those changes, and then move on with your day and attack either additional studies or go chase some of that other fantastic stuff in your sleep care continuum to help your lab. Here's the caveat. None of this means a hill of beans if EnsoSleep is not doing a good job scoring those studies and matching the expectations of your technicians and the providers that are reviewing the study. So I have a couple of examples here because the data is important. We gotta be accurate. We have to be good. So I have stripped away the names of the businesses to protect the innocent, but this is actual data from our customers. I have 4 customers that I want to show. We can get you some examples of case studies as well if you do want to take a look at those. They're also on our website or speak to any of our customers. But this first example, this was a customer. This is the first 30 days. Excuse me. So the goals and the results are listed up here at the top. They had a backlog, typically running about 8 days. They wanted to turn their reports over, get the results to the patients in 2 days, which they were able to achieve. They wanted to reduce the time per study from 45 minutes to 25, which they were able to achieve. This was 2 locations, by the way. One location got off to a quicker start than the other, but you can see they both did really well here. And then they wanted to get their staging agreement to over 90%, meaning they wanted to have to change less than 10% of the results that EnsoSleep was putting out there. So again, this was in the first 30 days. If you are not familiar with a scatter plot, I'm old and it's been a while since I've been in college and I'm not typically involved in research. So I did have to get this explained to me, but once I got it, I got it. So here, if you look on the left, it says the tech AHI, and here at the bottom is the Enso AHI. So basically what we're saying here is if the tech scored a 15 and Enso scored a 15, it's gonna go right here. Can you see that little dot? Hopefully everybody's, if you're my age, you got your cheaters on and everybody else can see it clear. So you want to see things right along this line in the middle, meaning the tech and Enso came up with the same results. What you don't want to see is an outlier like this, right? So Enso scored this AHI, what looks like maybe 16, and the tech gave it 3. So this is an outlier. This is the sort of thing that, again, this was the first 30 days for this particular customer, working through things. You're going to want to work with the customer success team and say, hey, a lot of these are going really, really well. Let's open this one up and take a look, because there's probably some things that we can change to get them tweaked, or maybe, maybe the leads fell off of this patient or something. There's really, I can't really tell from this, but our customer success team, the implementation team, will dive into that with you. The other thing that I wanted to show you here is just, I think, short of this scatter plot, which is, very easy to see that we did a pretty good job right off the bat for these guys. You can also see right through the middle, it's the same thing. So here's tech AHI, here's the EnsoSleep AHI. So here's how many times we got exactly the agreement on the results for not having OSA, mild, moderate, and severe. So you can see ultimately we got just about the same outcomes right off the bat for these guys, which is pretty good. You don't always see it this good, but again, it's a little better in the one location than the other. All right, so these are 2 examples of existing customers. This is actually data that was pulled from this month. And I just think this is important because you'll see there's not nearly as many outliers. There's a lot more going through it. And I wanted to mention to you, one of the biggest selling features that I have on my sales team representing this company is the customer success team and the engineering team and their commitment to ongoing optimization. And I just think this is a really great example. You can see as we get in here, they're constantly taking feedback. If something looks out of whack, which doesn't happen a lot, you're able to reach out to the customer success team. And then we can see if there's any sort of settings that maybe need to be adjusted, or if something was updated with your software. So again, this is AHI. The last thing I wanted to show was a really high volume. This is staging agreement. This is not AHI. We all know how difficult it can be to find complete agreement across staging. I mean, if you look at these numbers down the middle again, where for this large customer, the tech identified the staging compared to EnsoSleep, really doing a fantastic job. This is, again, this month's numbers for this particular customer. All right, the last thing that I want to talk about is the implementation process. If you are ready to implement EnsoSleep and try to take advantage of that freed up time and chase some of these other things, or just, if your techs are fantastic at scoring with their consistency and diving into stuff, and you want to expand and you want to chase more as well. The implementation is a 60-day implementation process. As I mentioned, we're constantly optimizing, constantly making changes and working with you. You'll meet with our customer success team regularly. I think it can depend on how much you want, monthly, every other month, or maybe even quarterly, to just give feedback. If sometimes those meetings are very short because things are moving very smoothly. But the first 60 days is really focused on making sure that we have everything set up the way you want and you're getting the results that you want. So we recently decided we are not charging an implementation fee for this. So you get 60 days to go through this, and we'll work with you to make sure that we get everything ironed out the way you want. With that, you don't pay as we're going through that. I'm going to tell you, most of our customers do not need 60 days to get things ironed out. So if your staff is really committed to getting that feedback to the customer success team, very often this can be a 4-week implementation, and you can take advantage of running all of your studies through EnsoSleep for no fee. The installation is easy. I always think this is a funny bullet to speak to because it's easy for you and I. Our customer success team basically runs it. It is really not a difficult installation, but it's quite particularly simple for us because we don't really have to worry about it. It's something that we do take on for you. We've worked with all of the different systems. Basically, like you saw in the Sandman demo, there's a folder that we establish on your drive. We walk you through it, and then once the study has been completed at night, you pop it in that folder, Enso scores it and pops it right back, and then you have the ability to review it. It's very similar with many of the other programs. First 2 weeks is really focused on quality assurance, taking a look at how you're scoring now, getting some studies over that have already been scored that we can run through our model, see how we're doing, making sure we have all the channels mapped accurately. And then the next 2 to 6 weeks is really focused on, like I said, finding if there's outliers where the scoring isn't lining up as well as you would like with what a tech would do, really focused on workflow, get those enhancements going, any configurations and tweaking, and then setting you on your way to get the kind of results that our customers are getting. And that is an overview of the software as well as what the implementation process is like should you be ready to implement EnsoSleep.